1975 Triumph T140 Bonneville versus the bike that Triumph should have built, the 1975 Yamaha XS650. These two bikes were stacked against each other, the 650 versus the 750, both parallel twins that have a lot of British influence and is actually British. Before we get into the video, I'm going to address this right away. This might be a German design, but the essence of the machine is very British. With that being said, this Yamaha right here almost single-handedly bankrupted the Triumph Motor Company alongside with all of the great British manufacturers of its day. And today, we're going to compare the two to see which ones actually stack better against itself in the modern day and in the past. To start this video off, I think it's very important that we go back and look at history to see why these bikes came to be, why this ended up failing, and why Yamaha ended up seeing a large amount of success. But that brings us a little further back to 1975. Brings us back to 1968, 1969. After World War II, the British economy saw a massive rise. Motorcycles were selling like crazy. Everyone and their dad had a BSA at the time. Triumph Motor Company, Norton, all of them were seeing tons of success. The Japanese companies had not yet made their marks, and a lot of them did not exist in that time period. The British economy was going great for about 20 years. Fast forward 2 decades, and now we're seeing inflation, oil crises, we're seeing lack of employment. And at this time, the economy slowed down a lot. People were spending less people had jobs, and it was really a tough time in England. But not only England, America also suffered because of the gas crisis at the time. These Triumphs, BSAs, Nortons, all of them are very expensive motorcycles. And in 1969 came the solution for these expensive motorcycles. Yamaha, Suzuki, and Kawasaki were very focused on two-strokes at the time. Soichiro Honda did not like two-strokes, but they were focusing more on the 305, the 350, and the 450 CBs until they made the CB750 in 1969, and at the same time, Yamaha made the 1969 XS650, the very first 4-stroke machine that Yamaha had come out with. When the XS first came out, it looked way more like a Triumph than this bike does right here. It had a very similar tank, it had a drum brake in the front, but the Yamaha actually had features that the Triumph did not have. A T120 Triumph would have cost you near $2,000 US at the time, when you could go and pick up a Yamaha XS650 for a fraction of the cost. You'd be saving almost $700 buying this instead of the Triumph and getting more technology. The Yamaha in 1969 was very raw and it did not have good braking, but people still preferred it to the Triumph because of the massive saving you could have had. As time went on in the early 70s, getting to the mid 70s, Yamaha did a really good job at advancing the handling and upgrading the braking to be capable of performing up to a Triumph. But when you're comparing them in the modern day, these bikes are relatively close in price. A Yamaha XS650 can fetch up to $45,000, even $5,000, and you can get a Triumph T140 in the same price point. The Yamaha XS650B that you're seeing here bring a little bit less than an XS1, so you can get a cleaner bike for less money even now. But is the Triumph better or worse than the Yamaha is? As someone who owns both, I'm going to tell you from a little bit of an unbiased perspective. I love Yamaha almost as much as I love Triumph, and I mean, it could be a coin toss-up on which brand I would choose on any given day. When you come down to these specific bikes right here, when you're looking at them from a quality, a rideability, serviceability, and a cost perspective in 1969, 1975, the Yamaha would be the clear winner. It is very clear why Yamaha was winning. These bikes are very high quality, and for the price difference in the day, it's massive. And when you're looking to save as much money as possible because of recession, the Yamaha just makes so much more sense. The Triumph could not compete with the radical upgrades this bike was getting along with the savings that you were getting. When you're looking at a modern day motorcycle, you're putting nostalgia aside and you're looking at just getting a good bike for the price. One's going to come in $1,500 cheaper versus the other one, which is more expensive, and the cheaper one has the same reliability, if not better, and it's more advanced. The Yamaha just ultimately made way more sense than the Triumph made. But when we compare them today, there's actually big differences between the two. When journalists in the 70s compared these bikes, the first thing they would mention is the handling. The frames being a little bit more robust in these bikes, the Triumph being a little bit more comfortable, the Triumph being a little bit more luxurious than the Yamaha. And a massive concern with the Yamaha, especially in the early 70s, was the braking. The braking and suspension could not compete with the Triumph. Now it's clear that in 1975 I would have chose, if I was looking to save money, the Yamaha. But there's also a good reason as to why you would choose the Triumph. Now I had my XS before I had my Bonneville. I put some miles on this bike. It pulls nice, it's comfortable, and the suspension is fairly good. When you're looking and reading everything about the bikes, a lot of things like the suspension and the braking really don't matter in a modern day stage. It's not the top of the line machine anymore. You can go out for the same price as this, buy a machine that is 100%, if not 200% more capable than this, and would leave it in the dust. When you're buying a bike like this, you're really looking for something old, something classic, something that is going to provide some type of nostalgia for you, something in history, or you're looking for a nice vintage bike of some aspect. The XS is very serviceable. You can do almost anything yourself. There's a wide array of parts available, and the same things apply to this bike right here. This is a very serviceable bike. You can do most of it yourself. This bike does have a couple of weird things going for it. Because this is a 1975, it has a right-hand shift. If you get a 1976 bike, it has a left-hand shift. I pulled this bike out of a barn. It had been sitting for 7 to 10 years. This bike fired immediately into life. But the reason why it was parked is because the owner could no longer kick the bike over. I will mention one thing. Yamaha's electric starters are not that good. They really haven't withstood the test of time. They can be serviced, they can be updated, but that's just something to mention. Even though Yamaha has the electric start, most people recommend with these XSs that you actually kickstart them. But it has an electric starter. You can service them if something goes bad. And the fact that it has it, I mean, the owner of the Triumph could have actually rode the Yamaha for the couple of years he parked it if he wanted to get on a bike, but he just couldn't kick this over. So that is a factor, even now, that you have to consider between the two. And if you don't want a right-hand shift, you can't buy a 75, because you're going to get a right-hand shift bike. Now, both these bikes have a 360-degree crankshaft, meaning the cylinders go up and down at the exact same time, which gives them the thump they have and the cadence of the exhaust. Now, both these bikes are very similar when it comes down to it. And again, this isn't really a thing about performance, but the Triumph is faster. 100%, the bike pulls way more stronger than the XS does, but the biggest difference I noticed, and the thing that sets the Triumph apart from the XS, truly is the handling aspect of the machine. This bike has dry rotted tires on it, and the XS is in fully operational shape. The smoothness of the suspension, you're going around bumps, you're taking turns, you're taking corners. The Triumph has this comfortability and predictability, while the XS is a little bit more raw, and you can tell that it is a little bit more untamed than the Bonneville is. That aspect makes me enjoy the Triumph just a little bit more, but when it comes down to it, from a historical significance, this is the bike that I choose. This is a better rider, and if I was keeping it solely based on the fact that I want a bike to ride and enjoy, this bike is more expensive, and this bike is the bike that I would choose. Looking at it from the other buyer's perspective, like I said earlier, to save the money, recession time in the 70s, the XS. But for the extra little bit of money, I'm still taking the Bonneville. It's the bike that I enjoy more. It's the bike that I find just a little bit more fun with. This is the bike I jive with a little bit more than the XS. Both of the bikes are absolutely fantastic, and don't get me wrong. I initially bought this bike because I thought it was a good deal, and I knew that I could make a couple bucks on it if I bought it and sold it, but it's continued to draw me towards it and like it more and more. This is one of the more undesirable Triumphs. The later year of Triumphs were undesirable because they went away from the pre-unit construction with a separate gearbox and transmission, and also these bikes have an oil in frame, so the frame holds the oil instead of a separate tank on the side. This is a wet sump system, so that's another thing that does matter in the modern day. This bike doesn't leak. This bike leaks a little bit of oil. It's a little bit more messier. And when you do it from a quality perspective, I mean, both of them are about the same. Yamaha has high quality parts, Triumph has high quality parts, but something about this bike just feels more solid to me. I'm not going to leave you guys without a little exhaust note. Now, we didn't do a proper ride review. I'd love to take both of these bikes out in the springtime and have my brother ride one and me ride the other and go cruise together and kind of compare them if you guys are interested in that. I want to know in the comments what you guys would take, why you would take it, if you've rode them in the past. And with that being said, let's start both these bikes up. So the Triumph has an ignition on the side right underneath the indicator here. The thing about the Triumph, however, is I already have the fuel on. You have to prime the carburetors and gasoline comes out of the little prime bowls. It's a little messy. You're going to get the smell of gasoline on your hands. You're going to get oil smells all on you. You know, when you get done riding the Triumph, you're gonna smell like a old British machine. No matter what, there's not really any avoiding it. You're gonna smell like oil and gasoline. So prime kick, and it should fire right up. Runs healthy, runs strong, sounds amazing. Coming over, I'm gonna start the Yamaha at the exact same time here. I'm gonna shut the fuel off here. Bike's idling a little bit lower. You see how raw this bike is? If you rev up that Triumph, it doesn't jump. You rev this bike up, it wants to just jump out of the way. This is a raw, fun bike. I love both of these bikes, man. They're both great machines. I love them both. And that's all I have for this video. If you did enjoy, do me a huge favor, leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, and as always, I'll see you guys in the next one.